Hey, folks, welcome to Kaisers Kastle. Hopefully, everybody's doing fine out there today, enjoying life. I had a couple of. First, I always lead with corrections, and I'm going to correct a couple of things. Jethro and Scott, one, they both pretty much said the same thing. Our media is so bad in America. Now, Baz is from England, another, which is the head of the Commonwealth, where New Zealand and Australia, are, and they have probably the most strict gun laws besides Australia. But just like Australia, you can have a gun. But it just takes some hoops to jump through. Well, I was corrected on that, so I stand corrected. I'll let Baz talk on that. But thank you guys for pointing that out. But both of them had one question, and that was about the plates. And I don't know the specifics on that. Baz might know some of that, but we're going to get into that right now. And here you go, brother.
Hi guys, you alright? Chuff, how are you doing, brother? All good?
Outstanding, brother, outstanding.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. My apologies again if my internet goes off. I've been having issues recently, but hopefully it stays quite stable. Yeah, there's a lot of different narratives coming from this incident out in Christchurch. But like you say, going onto the plates sort of scene, onto that scenario, yeah, body armor plates are quite hard to get hold of. They're not, you know what I mean. Um, you can't be bought from shops really. It's usually an online thing or through black market, through military contacts and things like that. Helmets, surplus helmets, you can usually get hold of quite easily, especially the older ones. I know if you come to the UK and you go into an old military surplus store, you can pick up like all the old army helmets. Not so much the newer ones we've got because obviously they're still quite restricted on what they're made out of and the build and things like that. But certainly the older style helmets you can get hold of, and we were using these up until about 6, 7 years ago, and they're still Kevlar stuff like that. But body armor plates, no matter how large, how small they are, what they're made out of, whether they're ceramic, compound glass, metal, or a derivative of that, they are quite hard to get hold of if you don't have, like we say, someone in the know or access to the deep web or anything like that. Again, if any of the listeners are out there thinking I'm talking complete bollocks, please let me know. But I know certainly from my experience from the military, outside of the military, especially in the UK, and I would dare say Australia, again, not too well fair with New Zealand, but they're pretty hard to get hold of, brother. Pretty hard to get hold of.
Right, right. The one thing that really blew my mind with it, and I was just like listening to this narrative, and it's collapsed, but they're not focusing on some of the things, I think, just like I didn't, because I was misinformed, because that's what the Western media is doing on this issue, is they're misinforming us. And folks, if I sound like crap, I've been running at night 102-degree temperature, and like right now my temperature is 99. This has been going on for a week. So, but yeah, here's something interesting. Me and Baz were going to do a show together on the last show, and he can attest to what was going on. But I labeled it, the Christchurch shooting. You remember what I wrote? And every time we tried to record it, what happened, Baz?
Yeah, it just kept cutting off. It was strange. It'd start recording, then it'd click, and then technical difficulties as if your connection was being choked. Yeah, there was definitely something going on there, brother.
Yep. But in all honesty, the things that need to be looked at, I know people died and are suffering. Okay, this is a fact. This whole false flag narrative that people are pushing, I I I know people can die in a false flag. Don't take my words wrong. But this doesn't seem like a false flag. It seems more like a setup. Because when you read his thing, yeah, he talks about this, that, and the other. But then all of a sudden, he keeps going back to, am I a communist? Yeah. Uh, it depends on what your term of communist is. You know, am I a socialist? Yeah. Well, it depends on your term of what a socialist is. You know, he's caveating all these left-wing things, and I honestly think this might be his thoughts. And here's another thing somebody corrected me on, and that would have been Scott. In our trades, they said that there was 4 people arrested that day. One of them was a civilian who had a shotgun who aided police, but the police arrested him because he pulled out his shotgun. And Scott said, no, there was no gun used. And but there was 2 other accomplices. And I've seen a video of those 2 too. So it just boggles the mind on the different things, how the narrative's morphing and changing. And like I said, Scott was like, dude, there was nobody firing back at him. What have you seen, Baz?
Yeah, I like say going back to that narrative sort of edge to it. I think it's where you come from. There's changes in the narrative. Obviously, in the States, the narrative will be different to here, to how it's different in Australia and again in New Zealand. Certainly over here, because of obviously what is written in the manifesto is questioning: am I a communist? Am I a socialist? The sort of left wing sort of media is having kittens over this, thinking we're going to get tarred with this massacre. When it's pretty obvious that he's got right wing leanings. I mean, you look at the pictures in court. He's banging out the white power hand signal. Again, is it gesturing? Is it signalling? We don't know until more facts become more apparent. But certainly the narrative over here, certainly from the sort of the mainstream media, is that he was influenced somewhat by the British far right when he spent time over here. I know there was times where he's actually mentioned some of the recruiting videos that we've got for the military over here, where it shows a Muslim soldier, where he said it's green on blue, or is it blue on blue, just because of the uniform this soldier's wearing.
Right.
But again, the sort of the main headline that they're pushing here is the fact that is he somewhat radicalised or affected through the British far right? And what you could ask yourself is that if he was so affected over here, why has it taken so long for him to do what he's done? It's nearly 9 years since he's been in the UK.
Right.
You know, so what's happened in between that? You don't get radicalised and sit for 9 years. Usually, the point where you're radicalised, it's where the feelings are most strong. You know what I mean? That fiery hatred's burning most bright. Because you're new to it, it's that honeymoon period of like, I'm going to make a name for myself and stuff like this, not 9 years down the line.
Right.
So again, I think that blows that narrative out. Has he come into contact with the British far right? Probably.
Right.
You know, I mean, the British far right going back as far as the 60s and 70s were largely responsible for branching far right groups all over the world. We had like the British National Party, the National Front, we had Combat 18, you know, and they were quite closely sort of affiliated with neo-Nazi groups out in Germany,
right,
on the fringes of Russia, in Holland and places like that. And obviously you've got this thing that's happened in Holland today, in Utrecht, which we'll probably touch on later on. But was the British far right solely the responsible factor, the sort of planting the seed? I very much doubt it. You know.
Same here.
Again, I've not seen the narrative what's coming over from the States. I mean, what have you heard of what's the narrative over there, mate?
Well, they're trying to say that, and they, by the way, his travel history is something they're not really talking about over here. People don't know that he traveled to North Korea. People don't know that he traveled to Pakistan. Good. And I've seen there's some dude that is claiming that he was a professional. Now, he kept that Benelli running. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see him have to jack that semi-auto once. He was just feeding as he was going, right? We both know how to do that. But that's something you can practice in your basement. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't prove to me anything. But and then when he did his mag change, you saw him fumble and stumble several times on his rifle mag change. So
Yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't.
His stoppage when he was actually in them. Yeah, go on, Bugger.
Yeah. Just like you said, the stoppage. You go on, elucidate that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the footage where he's actually inside the mosque, inside the main prayer room, and he's obviously killing the occupants of that building, you do see it actually get a stoppage, and he's quite flustered. Now, I don't. Obviously, it's a high sort of high adrenaline moment that he's in.
Right.
Obviously, he's taking human lives. Chances are it's the first time he's actually been engaged in taking someone's life
Right.
or in firing his weapon at a biological target. And you do see him get a stoppage, and it takes him quite a while to sort that out. It's not sort of an instinctive thing like it would be of a professional, like we say, as a soldier, as a law enforcement, or as someone who's quite proficient with firearms. Usually that IA drill, that immediate action drill, tilt the weapon, cock the weapon,
Right.
got a magazine, whatever weapon system you're running at the time. And it's usually magazine off, cock the weapon, magazine back on, and you're usually back in game. It does take him quite a while, but again, he kept that Benelli running. As soon as he walks up to that mosque, he basically empties that Benelli, throws it on the floor, and goes in there and starts using his rifle to engage targets.
Yep.
But then you see him in the car and he's operating that weapon system single handed, you know what I mean, with one hand. Yeah, so again, I think it's um, practice, dry practice, like we say, like in your basement, in a bedroom, in front of a mirror. Because again, going back to what was written on all the weapon systems and stuff like that, which we'll go on to probably later on, um, you are someone to do that isn't in the like 100% frame of mind. There's some kind of imbalance there, and chances are he has stood in front of a mirror with those weapons, with that plate carrier on, psyching himself up. You know what I mean? So that's where I reckon his sort of skills and drills come from. It's just standing at home doing it, not actually doing his occupation.
Right. Not getting any
I
real
mean, what are your
formal.
thoughts on that, mate?
Oh yeah, not getting any real formal training. The one thing I think he might have been able to do is in Pakistan, especially linking up. See, this is another thing, man. He did you see that he wrote that article for their Pakistan Board of Tourism or something, saying how he loved the culture,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other.
And he was treated well and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so then there's just so many levels that this does not smell right. But the main crux of this thing to me is, like I said, I think it's a setup trying to make the villain, when I think it was somebody who didn't really have right leanings. Even his manifesto, he can't, what's the one thing in common you hear with all right wing groups? They always have to talk about our Jewish neighbors, right? And guess what? He doesn't mention them once in the manifesto. So you see what I'm saying? So your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, you go into the Pakistan, and then he was in Pakistan. What was it, last October or something like that?
Yep.
He's been to Turkey a couple of times. I know in 2016 he was sort of like Turkey and Western Europe. You're going back to this radicalisation. To say, obviously, the British narrative that he was radicalised in the UK, or those seeds were planted. If you're radicalised against Islam, you then don't travel to Islamic countries um, and say you've enjoyed yourself, or or go to more than one Islamic country. You know what I mean? It's there's certainly a hiccup in that narrative there. Um, I would say his radicalisation. He's been on the fringes of it, but it's not as long as people are saying. It wasn't certainly 9 years, especially if you're going to Muslim countries, Pakistan, Turkey, places like that. Or if you would think he was radicalised, why is he not carrying out those atrocities there? You know, where it's a target-rich environment. You know what I mean? And if you think doing something like what he's done in their homeland, as now I'm getting into the mindset of this dude now. Okay, you think of nine
Right.
11, you think of the 7/7 bombings where they've done this stuff, air quotation marks, on our soil. You know, you would think that it'd have more of a sort of terrorizing factor, more of a sort of a punch to it if he was going to mosques in Islamabad, mosques in Dalyan in Turkey and places like that, and carrying these out. You know, was it a logistics thing? Chances are it wasn't, because you know as well as I do, brother. You can go to any market in sort of rural Pakistan, pick yourself up an AK, pick yourself up a Tokarev, you can pick up yourself RPGs and Dushkas if you so wish.
Yep.
You know, so this narrative of this radicalisation has been so long. I think it's bullshit, to be honest. I think it's bullshit. I think it's a recent thing. There's obviously people behind the scenes of this that have helped him out, that have got him sort of in this frame of mind. And again, I've had some input to this manifesto, whether they're left wing or right wing. Again, then there's this hidden narrative behind that. Is this going to be a tribute to one of those, you know what I mean, one of those parties, left wing or right wing? And I think that's where all these narratives are coming from, because it's so unsure in his manifesto of what sort of side of the fence it sits on. Yeah, he's banging out the white power hand signal, you know.
Yeah, but that's just an okay signal.
Honest,
yeah.
Yeah. To the left wing, it's sort of a sigh of relief. Oh, thank fuck, he's doing that in court. He's doing the white, you know what I mean, the old white power hand signal. So it's sort of a sigh of relief to them. Where the right wing, again, depending on how far right you're going to sit, it's going to be, yes, nice one, brother, white power, or it's going to be, for fuck's sake, this is going to get pinned on us. You know what I mean? This is going to go against their fight. You know, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, everybody keeps saying it's a white power hand signal. It's a DOK in America. I don't know about England, but I remember the Englishmen that I worked with there understood if I couldn't talk or something, and they, you know, there's chatter going on, moving, whatever, and they'd say, "Are you okay?" And you just give them the okay signal. That's really all it is. That actually was a meme created by 4chan as a troll, because it was just, you know, what.
I think it's been hijacked, hasn't it? I think it's been hijacked to a certain extent.
I don't know about that, because, you know, that'd be like saying your mother, my mother, father, whatever it is, given an okay signal, "Are you okay?" And it's just natural to us. It's not like something that, you know, if you co-opt something that's already got a definition, have you really co-opted it, or are you just, you know, trying to troll people? And I think it's more of a troll, honestly, brother. But that's my own 2 cents, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am on that one. But yeah, I did see that, and, you know, but like you said, it could be like, it could be just another thing. And another thing is the funding of it. This guy has survived for how long, traveled how many places? What kind of work did he do? See what I'm saying? Where was his money coming from?
In a gym or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, working in a gym, said he's a fitness expert. A physical trainer does not make the money to travel as extensively as he's done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Without having some kind of income.
Right.
You know, obviously that'll be getting looked into by the intelligence services and the police. But let's say Eastern Europe, Pakistan, Turkey, North Korea, France, Spain, Portugal, all places like that.
Right.
You don't. And then the weapon systems he was running, he didn't have 1-2 weapon systems. He had cars full.
Right.
Didn't he? You know, he had what, a good couple of rifles, numerous shotguns.
Yep.
Obviously, he's got this body armor, and again, if he's getting that on the black market, that isn't cheap.
Right.
That isn't cheap. You know, so there's funds coming from somewhere. There's an outside influence, certainly an outside influence.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I know there was somebody arrested. Now again, the guys out in Oz or the Kiwi guys were able to sort of clarify on this. But I know somebody else was arrested, a younger guy, for streaming this live. I know your man did it, this Brenton. He did it. He was streaming it live, but then it was sort of like bounced on, if you know what I mean. Now I don't know whether that's someone doing sort of, let's call it again, quotation marks, tech support for him, whether there's a cell there or what. But again, this will become more apparent as the intelligence services and the police uncover more of this incident.
Yeah, the one thing
But
about foreign countries, unlike the U.S. and stuff, is they tend to have a lot more focused intel agencies where they'll go after what they specialize in one thing. The ones who are going against Islamists, they're not working, you know, British, you know, hate groups or whatever you want to call them, right? It's not the same people working that because they specialize in what they're looking at. Whereas in America,
yeah,
they try to be masters of all, which makes them masters of none. And that's why there's so many times that things will succeed, unfortunately. And we're talking even with Islamic stuff. I mean, you had 7/7, we had 9/11, right? So there's still times that there's going to be a drop through. But it's still, the interesting thing is, why don't you go on and explain to the people what a little more about what you were talking about with the kid getting arrested? Because I saw the one video with the two guys. One guy goes running into a car. They both have rifles on their bodices. And then a 35-minute, now in England, if there's a shooting, how long, and any of the Australian or New Zealand folks on my channel, please pipe up and correct, is that common for a 35-minute in a town like Christchurch, police response time to something like that?
no, in the UK, again, we've got to get sort of, it is education for someone, it's putting facts right. The UK police are actually pretty well armed. Yeah, we do have the normal beat cops that are just walking around with tasers and nightsticks and pepper spray and stuff like that. But a lot of our police are actually firearms officers, tactical firearms officers, and um, again, like most sort of tactical units, they answer normal calls as well, domestic calls. I mean, I was actually in I wasn't involved in it, but I was the car in front where it was only about 3 or 4 months ago. A car behind me came off a junction and rolled over, and the first sort of unit on the scene was a tactical ops unit. And these guys are obviously they've got the either the 416s or the G36s, and they're all carrying Glocks. And that was in
Fully
five
kitted
six
up.
minutes. You know, the
Yeah.
guys just couldn't get fully kitted out. Obviously, they were getting out the car and moving tactically towards it because the car had just gone upside down. But that was in 5 to 6 minutes. That's the average sort of response time to this sort of something that's happened over here. If it's where there's shootings and stuff like that, there's no way, even in the UK, and we are strapped for police officers, especially firearms police officers, but stuff like that goes to the top of the pile. It doesn't take 36 minutes. If it was in the middle of nowhere, in a quiet rural area, I could understand. But in the middle of a city, certainly in the UK, you're talking sub 10 minutes to get there. And that's coming from across the city or wherever. Basically, be the nearest tactical unit, boom, straight in there, ready to go. But 36 minutes, it's a bit, and I saw sort of like news clippings and stuff like that. Would like to thank the police for getting there in just 36 minutes. You know what I mean? Just 36 minutes.
Right.
If they'd got there maybe before, again, this is speculation. I'm not going to start pointing fingers. But if there was a response before that, would more lives have been saved? We don't know. Or would there have been, you know what I mean, more deaths? But certainly in the UK and I would dare say in the States, that response time was far too long for what happened. Far too long.
Oh, I totally agree with you,
I mean,
brother.
again, the guys over there can maybe clarify on the reasons why it took so long.
Oh, I totally agree with you on that. I mean, when seconds count, police are normally minutes away. And minutes away means minutes, not 36 minutes. That just is an abhorrent, unless out west, let me rephrase this, or I'll have to eat my words to somebody. When I was working a contract out in Arizona, because of the size of this county and the place we were at, you were looking at a response time sometimes to an hour. And that's because it was the largest county in Arizona. And so the sheriff's deputies would not arrive that quickly. Of course, the Indians only had, or Wallapai Indians, they only had jurisdiction, their police, up in the Wallapai area and along this road that went to the Wallapai's, what do you call it, reservation.
Yes.
Reservation. And, yep. And so there was some issues that way. But in all honesty, even then, if something would have happened, if something major would have kicked off like that, Arizona, everybody carries a gun. So it wouldn't just be you going out to face something. Other people would be joining in, trust me. And also, why would somebody, if that is a case, if this is a factual case that really happened, and I'm not saying it did, because, like I said, I had the two guys question me on that, and I don't know. That's why they buggered this whole dialogue up so badly. But the interesting thing to me is, okay, here's an example, Bass. Over in your country, right, in England, if something goes on, are you going to run out there with your gun and help the police and then be arrested by the police after you've helped them? Like they say that's what happened on that day?
Yeah, I would dare say, certainly in this country, knowing our gun laws, and especially recently, with things that are happening, a lot of people on our edge. We're coming off the back of Christchurch, and then obviously today in Holland, if you run out to aid the police out here, where firearms aren't usually a common occurrence, I would dare say you probably get a couple of round centre mass. You know, although our tactical firearms officers are massively trained, hugely trained,
right?
Obviously, because gun laws are quite different out here. It's not sort of minimum time spending rounds down a range. Again, I'm not saying that's what happens in the States, but I know from LEO brothers and sisters out there that they do say sometimes you might not fire that weapon for such a long time. You know what I mean? All you've got to do is sort of your qualification on it. To qualify as a firearms officer in the UK, it's quite stringent, if you know. But still, if they're in the middle of a situation and then all of a sudden some random citizen pulls out a rifle, pulls out a shotgun, whatever, it's not going to probably end well for that person.
Right.
Not saying they're going to get shot, but certainly they're going to get a beanbag to the chest. They're going to get taken down quite heavily.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the people that are dealing with it, the law enforcement, they're the specialists. You know what I mean? Your average Joe citizen, Joe public, isn't trained in tactical situations, in hostage terrorist situations.
Right.
And a lot of times they're going to become a hindrance. Like, all you've got to do is look at the Las Vegas shootings.
Yep.
I actually had a friend that was out there at that time. Was in the vicinity when obviously these gunshots, again, like your military, were trained to run towards gunfire and not away from it. So
right.
Obviously they knew that something's going down. It wasn't one or two gunshots, it was after like 30, 40 gunshots. So like, fuck, something's going on. Ran towards, and they helped out, plugging bullet holes, holding people's throats and intestines in where the bullets have come through them. But then you have clowns like that, this Dan Bilzerian running up to the police trying to flash his credentials, asking for a gun. You're going to get bitch slapped. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You're not tactically trained. You're going to be a hindrance. You know. And that's why this guy. Yeah, go on, brother.
And the team members don't know you, so all of a sudden you come up, and you're like, I don't even know who you're talking about, but that just boggles the mind. Dude's coming up, hey. Cop, give me a gun. Yeah, nah. Get out of my way.
Yeah, I know they did. Yeah, the Dan Bilzerian, he's like a socialite. Spent a little time in the military. Did buds, failed it. I know he spends a lot of time on screen. he's one of these that will post a lot of pictures with like women in bikinis. He's inherited a lot of money, and because he spent time in the military, he thought that he wanted to basically be a hero. He had his friend filming him, for Instagram and stuff like that, wanting to help out. And again, it wasn't because he wanted to help out; it was because he wanted to be seen a hero, you know. But we're obviously digressing slightly. Again, like you said, the team doesn't know who this guy is. All of a sudden, there's just a random civilian there with a firearm. You don't know what his intentions are.
Right.
So it's like any situation, even when you're doing hostage rescue and stuff like that, you treat everybody as a hostile until you can ascertain otherwise. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, there's a guy there with a firearm. If you're going to stand there next to your teammate, you don't know who he is. So straight away, one weapon's pointing at the actual shooter, and you might have one or two weapons pointing at this random civilian who's there probably for good intentions, but all of a sudden it's just this added factor that you don't need to exacerbate the situation, if you know what I mean. So I think that's why this came about. Again, even in the States, you might if you're in the States and there's a situation and you've drawn your firearm and basically you've got that focus on your situation to your front. You don't need someone pulling a weapon out next to you. Rusty old 1911 or an AR-15, whatever firearm they've got, no matter how big, how small, it adds technicalities to your situation that you shouldn't have to be dealing with. You know, again, that person that pulls out that firearm might be the saviour of the situation. Who might be close to the officer involved and say, "I've got a firearm. I'm going to give you a hand." That officer might turn around and go, "Okay, buddy, thanks for the help because I'm by myself or whatever." But certainly where there's a team of people, and it's not just somebody knocking off a liquor store or a gas station, when it's something of that magnitude where there's 50 people plus injured, dead, whatever, you know what I mean, you don't need extra firearms on the scene to make life more difficult, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah,
What are your thoughts on that?
an unknown factor. I mean, a completely unknown factor to you and the team. I mean, you know this from doing, you know, convoys and doing different things. You don't want people merging into your PSD or anything like that. You don't want them merging into your system, and they're an unknown quantity. It's just the reason why we used to have stay back 1,000 meters or you will be shot. Remember that sign we had on all of our vehicles back in the day? So
Yeah.
it's just the way it is. But I would definitely, this is just breaking to me through you actually, is go on and elucidate everybody to the thing that happened. You said it just happened today, right?
What was that? Sorry. Oh, the Holland
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, there's a gunman in Holland. I don't know all the details. It's sort of flashes that I've caught just before we started speaking. Basically, a male, and from the pictures, he looks sort of Middle Eastern, Arabic. So obviously, we can sort of like tie up sort of what demographic he comes from, and pretty much without wanting to put too much money on it, we can probably tell what religion he is as well. Has opened fire at a tram. We definitely know that there's one person dead, possibly more. He's from last time I checked, he's actually holed up in a building with counter-terrorism police, basically surrounding the area, looking for him.
Right.
But I think what this looks like, it's a, you know what I mean, not a copycat killing, but retaliation. There's been retaliation from obviously someone again who's been radicalised on the other side of the fence. Which again is something that we're going to have to touch on. I think it's from what's happened in New Zealand. There's been a massive knee-jerk reaction right across the world. You can obviously understand it in Christchurch, in New Zealand as a nation. That knee-jerk reaction. We're going to ban automatic weapons. He didn't use an automatic weapon. Okay, technicalities aside, he was using semi-automatic weapons, but it's like straight away, right? We're going to ban guns.
Right.
And then it's in the UK, they've all of a sudden they're having police officers standing outside mosques for safeguarding. where people like the Mayor of London, that absolute ass clown, who
Right.
says he doesn't have enough police officers to fight knife crime, but yet he can find enough police officers to go and stand outside mosques. How about the 150 so Christians that have been killed in Nigeria over the past 3 weeks
Yep.
by Islamic fundamentalists? Where's the police to stand outside churches? You know, now this guy's just brassed up a tram. Are we going to start putting police officers on trams?
Right.
You know, where do we stop with this? And again, it's a lot of this, not so much narrative, but this knee-jerk reaction. It's just nowadays, we need to protect the minority. You know, something's happened and let's be honest, New Zealand is on the complete other side of the world. Yes, it's a first world country. Yes, it's happened to, again, those air quotation marks, our people. You know what I mean? The white, Anglo-Saxon, Christian, whatever you want to call them, people. Sorry. That's happened obviously in Holland, but out there, again, it happened to these prayer goers at a mosque. And all of a sudden it's like, right, we need to start guarding mosques.
Right.
It happened in New Zealand. You can imagine doing it in New Zealand. Is it going to happen over here? It's going to be pretty hard done though, because all the firearms laws are different. We can't really lay our hands on semi-automatic weapons. Chances are if you've got a semi-automatic weapon, that the police know about it, if it's registered. If it's not registered, then it usually comes from the criminal underground, and I think they've got better things to do than brassing up mosques. You know what I mean? Drugs and stuff like that. But these police officers have been pulled from somewhere, so something's not being done, all to appease, let's say, the left. You know, the left. We need to guard these people while they're praying. How long do we guard them for? You know what I mean? No one's going to be stupid enough to go, oh look, he's just killed a load of Muslims in New Zealand, and they've just put a load of police officers outside these mosques in Birmingham, in Manchester, in Liverpool, in Glasgow, wherever. I'm going to go and start brassing up mosques. Of course we aren't. But do we keep the police there indefinitely? You know, why are police standing outside churches? We've had a load of people killed, a load of Christians killed in Nigeria. And I would dare say there's a lot more Nigerians in the UK than there is far right gunmen. You know,
right?
So, again, mate, it's pandering to the narrative. You know, the narrative they want to pull out.
And that's why they're bungling it.
The evil right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they're bungling it up.
Because there's too many. They're coming in at too many angles.
Yeah, they're bungling it up because what they're doing in essence is basically saying all of these crimes are being done by these white hateful people, and that just doesn't stand the facts. I mean, even in America, you will have, I think, the quote-unquote hate groups make up a very small percent of actual stuff that happens comparatively. But people forget that, like in the 60s, 70s, leftists are very proficient in doing messed up crap. The communists. And then in the 80s, when I came in, and you came in right after that, if I remember right, and I remember Europe, man, German Red Army faction, those boys were no joke. Same with Bader Meinhof gang.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, but they were funded by the old Soviet Union. So my thinking is this funding's still going on. And honestly, I think Angela Merkel, in a lot of aspects, because people forget, she is a physicist by training. And people forget she is an educated woman. But she was also Stasi and FDJ in the old East Germany. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
She was doing monkey move up, and she infiltrated the Christian Democrats, and that's who her party was when she got elected. And so there is funding for the left, and it's coming from many different sources. And that's something, because of this left-wing bent all of our governments have right now, Nobody's trying to track the funding. Everybody can say Soros this, but you have to have some nation. Well, I know under our last president, the last guy we had, I never say his name because, in my opinion, I saw his handiwork. He was funding the Arab Spring through the auspices of State Department, which is Hillary Clinton was in charge back then. So the reason why we have slave markets reopened in Libya is because of what she did in Libya by taking out Gaddafi. And that's just my 2 cents on it. But I agree with you, brother. I mean, there's just, at some point, the West needs to realize it's being subverted from within. Even the Romans were subverted from within for cheap labor, bringing in slaves. You know what I'm saying? And when Rome fell, Eastern Orthodoxy, Christianity, thrived in the East for another 1,000 years after Rome fell. The Roman Empire still lasted, but it was not in Rome. So anyways, I just got off on a tangent there. Sorry about that, brother.
Oh, boy. Every day's a school day.
Yeah. There we go. So, any other subjects we'll talk about while we're online? Because that you see is needed.
Yeah, it's on the fringes of what we've been speaking about, but it's something I feel quite strongly about, and it's how certainly our government, the UK government, is using narratives, pandering to sort of cover things up. Again, Brexit has gone massively tits up.
I saw.
I'm not going to bore people with it because it's just boring. But obviously, it's going back 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years for the work that we've been doing in Northern Ireland. Now, obviously, everybody knows about the Bloody Sunday incident or what happened there. And for years and years and years, the guys, the paras, one para, have been hounded about what happened that day. Now, obviously, you're going to get the Republicans that want a united Ireland turning around and saying basically they opened up and just executed all these people. No one's talking about the 2 Republican gunmen that actually opened fire first at the paras, and how they're not going to be facing any charges. But you might have seen it on the internet, this Soldier F has basically been charged after 47 years for shooting somebody.
Yeah, that's absolute bollocks.
Our armed forces being brought to justice if they murdered people, outright murdered them.
Right.
Yes. No. I don't. I agree that if you go murder someone outside of the remit of your duty, a trophy killing or as whatever, then you should be prosecuted. But do I agree that this guy has been hauled in front of court, charged with 2 accounts of murder? The chances are he's in his late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
The chances are he was a young guy. He's opened up on, again, those quotation marks, a crowd of people, and he's been fired at. He's seen these people were there peacefully. It started off as a peaceful protest, and it sort of spiraled from there. Gunmen turned up, opened fire at the paras. The paras retaliated. Yes, tragically, people died that were, innocent. But then to give the broad brush Good Friday peace agreement, anybody who does any wrong under the guises of the Troubles is exonerated. Nothing can be done.
Right.
People that blew up women and children, you know what I mean? Actually ripped women and children apart through bombs. Free.
Right.
But then a guy who's 47 years ago put rounds down range and killed somebody, now he's being, you know what I mean? He's going to face the law. It's just hypocritical, and it's. I've never seen such a sort of a strong feeling amongst the armed forces and the veteran community in the UK as of this There's going to be a million veteran march. This is sort of the thing that's circling at the minute, and it's got a lot of sort of travel behind it, where a lot of the veterans are going to be marching somewhere in the UK. Obviously, details to be announced further down the line in protest of this, and it's going to get to the point where I'm an old soldier. You know, I wouldn't say fought, but I served in Northern Ireland.
Right.
Because we can't call it a war because it wasn't a war, but it was a war to a lot of us. You know, it was us versus them. Where you fired your rifle on the streets of Belfast, Londonderry, wherever, and you were instantly taken back to base, back to your patrol base. Your weapon was taken off you. Your weapon was made safe and put in a plastic bag, and then you were basically under caution.
Right.
You know what I mean? You were placed in a room by yourself, so you couldn't speak to anybody. Everybody in your, what we called a brick back then, on your patrol was taken, separated, and basically you were guilty and proven innocent.
Right.
And that, once we sort of left Northern Ireland and we started actually doing war fighting with the Gulf, and certainly in Afghanistan, it took, especially for the older and bolder amongst us, it took us quite a while to get out of that mindset that if I pull the trigger now and I put a hole in this fucker in front of me, am I going to go to jail?
Right.
And after a while, it was sort of after sitting down and going, no, because this is a completely different type of sort of conflict that we're fighting, and it's quite hard to explain to someone that's not been in that situation, where they've just gone to Iraq or they've just gone to Afghanistan, where it's like, this is what you've trained for, now go and do it. We've trained for, like you say, that Third Shock Army coming over the East German border, where it's just going to be prolonged war fighting and tactical weapons and biological weapons and shooting Russians, to patrolling the streets of Northern Ireland, where the last thing I want to do is pull the trigger, you know, because you don't know where that round's going to go. It's like putting a high velocity round down a busy high street where you live, you know what I mean? You need to know where that round's going. So it's like sort of the last ditch attempt. That's the last thing we need to do is pull this trigger. To going somewhere like Afghanistan or Iraq, where you're going through hundreds of rounds a day in some places, and there's a danger of what's happening now, where people are being prosecuted, and you look at sort of the legacy shit from Iraq, the shit that guys were going through, very close friends of mine, one lived next door, going through the stuff that happened in Iraq. Obviously, what happened at Abu Ghraib with your guys, what happened with us, certainly the Queen's Lancashire Regiment, it was now the Lancs, the stuff that they were going through, all this, again, this abuse. It was just money chasing lawyers that would just have to make a name for himself, making a few bucks.
Yep.
Were hounding these guys, putting them into court for abuse and stuff like that. And there's going to be a danger where you're going to get to the point where there's going to be a guy or a young girl out on patrol, and someone stands in front of them with a weapon system. Okay, might not be pointed at him, but it's that snap second, you know, where is that? He's turning around with a weapon. Is he going to point it at me? Do I squeeze the trigger? In my eyes, thinking of Afghanistan, I'm going to put half a mag into him until he stops being a threat. But it's going to get to the point where you've got these people going, if I squeeze the trigger now, am I going to be fucking dragged in front of a judge in 30 years and tried with murder? You know what I mean? There's that danger of them inhibiting our operational effectiveness. And you're going to get, again, a generation of soldiers that are going to be trigger shy, like we were in Northern Ireland, where you squeeze that trigger and you are fucking doomed. You know,
and
it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening.
And not just that, brother. It's the other thing. It's the other thing that people don't think about is that when you have microseconds to take a decision that's irrevocable, you're responsible for it. And it's between you and them, okay? And you've taken that decision, you expect to have it looked at after the fact. I got taught this when I got out of the Marine Corps. I went into the National Guard in Ohio. And fortunately, we had two dudes that were National Guardsmen in our unit that were up there at Kent State. I don't know if you've ever heard the, I can't think of his name, Neil something song, Neil Young song, Four Dead in Ohio. Well, what they failed to tell everybody is they were trying to burn down the ROTC building. They were throwing rocks They act like throwing rocks is not capable of killing somebody. And that's a deadly force scenario. And these college students were out of hand. And they were out of hand because they were fueled up on Marxism and communism.
Yeah.
And so that would be like them trying to go after these old gentlemen. Did their time, probably were judged back then and found clear. And now, because of the social mores have changed a little bit, they're going after them. And you can't do that and expect your military to maintain any type of trust with the government with whom they serve. And that's actually a sad state of affairs. And a lot of it is done, unfortunately, in these days by forced. First off, I'm sure England's like America. When we had limited immigration, people assimilated, right? They became English. Same with us in America. You know, MASH, if you've ever seen Jamie Farr, I think he was Lebanese. And yet, when you watch MASH, he's as American as I am, right? Where now you have such an influx of these people that they're self-ghettoizing by choice. It's not like they're being forced to live in one area. They just choose to, and they maintain their tribal existence. I mean, honest tribal existence. Like, you know, this is the chief of my tribe. You know, they go down the line on it. So it's just something to ponder and think about, because that's something that I think the politicos never took into account. And whenever you have politicians, of course they're going to have say in things. But when you have them just for poll numbers being expedient and throwing people under the bus for doing their job, that's pretty problematic.
Especially when it's so insulting, where the other side of the fence, you had these people shooting young soldiers, you had people planting bombs and blowing people up, and they might have done 8 or 9 months in prison, 2 years or something like that, and they're free to walk the streets. When you have people like Martin McGuinness, who was Londonderry Brigade Commander, you've got Jerry Adams, who was Belfast Brigade Commander. These people were at the top of the IRA. These were your butt-fuck gunmen or drivers or runners. These were brigade commanders.
Right.
They were nodding or shaking their heads on whether people should be shot and blown up. You know, and for them to say, oh, but they became politicians. The Sinn Féin was the political wing of the IRA, same as Hamas and Hezbollah.
Right.
You know, to say that, well, I know for a fact that there was a young soldier. I was working out in West Belfast a period of time in the 90s, doing a job out there, and basically what had happened was there's a young soldier from one of the army units out there had gone out drinking with his friend and basically been picked up by this young girl. She'd taken him back to her house, which happened to be in West Belfast, which basically Republican stronghold. Most of the IRA council come from sort of West Belfast, are the ones that are in the north. Basically, he was in a bedroom. She went out to go to the toilet or to make a phone call, and before you know it, you've got all these armed men in this room. They take him out, and basically they were going to execute him. And they got on the phone to somebody, and basically said, right, we've got this rich soldier here. Can we fuck him? Give him a kick him and fuck him off. So obviously they filled him in, they beat him up, and then they threw him out in just his underwear. And when they traced that number, it went back to the Sinn Féin office in a place called the Twin Spires in West Belfast. Now, this office that Jerry Adams used quite often, obviously if they get in on the phone looking for permission to head job somebody, it's coming from somewhere up that chain, you know what I mean?
Right.
So to have these people calling for the heads of the soldiers that were involved in Bloody Sunday, it's quite an insult, especially when they're themselves were the ones shooting and blowing people up back then, you know. But now are seen as esteemed members of Parliament. Obviously, Martin McGuinness is dead, which is, again, no loss there.
Right.
But they weren't good people. They weren't good people at all. Now, again, I know in the States there's varying sort of views on republicanism, and again, it's that old, I'm third generation Irish or whatever, and a lot of the funds to the IRA came from the States,
right?
Especially places like Boston and New York, where there's strong Irish American communities. And the sad thing is, most of these funds were raised by law enforcement, you know, bands in the law enforcement,
right?
law enforcement pubs, where it was the romanticism of the freedom fighter and stuff like that, where most red-blooded Americans were against communism and against Hamas and Hezbollah and places like that, people like that. The IRA were hand in glove with these people, you know, and these red-blooded American, you know what I mean, they were funding this, and then it was sort of a wake-up call. When 9/11 happened, it was like, no, I'm going to choose my words carefully. It was sort of like, this is terrorism. And it was like, this is what we've been going, in not such a large scale. Go on, brother, what were you going to say?
It wasn't just the police and fire departments and stuff. I know what you're talking about back then. The more disturbing part was you actually had Thomas Tip O'Neill, and you also had the Kennedys, big financiers of the IRA. And not just that, they used to write in secretly into bills